Greece taught the world what civilization was, but today they must kneel before the warriors from the West.
You know, some conquests just change the map, but others, they change the entire world. And the story of how the Roman Republic ended up dominating the Hellenistic East, the world of Alexander the Great, that is one of those stories. Its effects have echoed for millennia. But here's the thing, it absolutely did not happen the way you might think.
So that's the big question, right? How did this rising power from the West, from Italy, manage to basically swallow the entire heartland of Greek civilization? Well, the answer is in some grand secret master plan cooked up in the Senate. No, the real story is way more interesting than that.
In fact, it's a story all about entanglement, ambition, and a whole lot of unintended consequences. It's a chain reaction that began with a problem that just kept getting bigger and bigger, and it all kicked off with a few pirates.
And look at this timeline. Over just 83 years, that's barely a single lifetime, a series of what seemed like separate conflicts would pull Rome deeper and deeper into the affairs of the East until suddenly it was the undisputed master. This is the wild path we're about to follow.
Okay, so let's set the stage. Our story doesn't begin with some epic invasion. Nope, it starts with a major headache for Roman merchants.
So picture it, 231 BC. Rome is feeling pretty good about itself. It's just beaten its rival Carthage and is now a real naval power. To the east, you've got the huge kingdoms left behind by Alexander's generals. But right across the Adriatic Sea, the Illyrian queen Tota is letting her pirates just run wild, and they are hammering Roman shipping lanes. The Senate sends diplomats, one of them gets murdered, and boom, suddenly Rome has a very good reason to send its legions across the sea for the first time.
Now here's where it gets really clever. The way Rome handles its victory is fascinating. They introduced this concept called amicitia, which means friendship. Sounds nice, right? A bond between equals, but, and this is a huge but, it wasn't a friendship between equals at all. It was Rome's way of saying, hey, we're friends now, and as our good friend, you'll do exactly what we say. It was basically the blueprint for an informal empire.
And this just perfectly shows their initial strategy. After they crush the pirates, Rome doesn't stick around. They pack up, sail home, and leave behind this network of new friends. And just like that, they've got their first real foothold of influence in the Greek world. As far as they were concerned, problem solved.
But solving one problem just created a much, much bigger one. Because that little intervention against some pirates, it put Rome on a direct collision course with the regional superpower, the Kingdom of Macedon. You see, the Macedonian king, Philip V, he's watching all this, and he sees Rome's growing influence as a serious threat. So while Rome is fighting for its very survival against Hannibal back in Italy, Philip makes a deal with the devil. He allies himself with Hannibal. For Rome, this was just unforgivable. What was a nuisance in the East had just become a five-alarm fire.
And this, my friends, set the stage for one of the all-time great military showdowns. On one side, you have the Macedonian phalanx, the formation that Alexander the Great used to conquer the world. It's this dense, terrifying wall of 18-foot pikes, basically unstoppable on flat ground. But on the other side, you have the Roman legion. It was way more flexible, broken up into smaller units that could adapt to rough terrain and, most importantly, could pour into any gap that opened up in an enemy line.
And at the Battle of Cynoscephalae in 1970 BC, flexibility won, big time. On the bumpy hills of Thessaly, the rigid phalanx just broke apart, and the legions swarmed into the gaps. The result? A complete catastrophe for Macedon. 8,000 soldiers killed. Alexander's legendary invincible formation had finally been beaten.
But what Rome did next, now this was a stroke of pure political genius. At the Isthmian Games, think of it like their Olympics, a huge festival. The Roman general Flamininus gets up and declares that all the Greeks are now free from Macedonian rule. The crowd went absolutely insane. Can you imagine? Rome wasn't a conqueror, it was a liberator, or so it seemed.
But liberating Greece wasn't the end of the story. Of course not.
it was just the beginning of a much, much deeper entanglement. By defeating Macedon, Rome had created a massive power vacuum. And as we all know, geopolitics hates a vacuum. Someone always tries to fill it.
So who's the next challenger to step into the ring? None other than Antiochus III, ruler of the enormous Seleucid Empire in the east. And get this, guess who his top military advisor was? Rome's old arch-nemesis, Hannibal. He sees his chance to grab Greece for himself, which of course forces Rome to step in yet again to protect its new friends.
Well, after Rome defeated Antiochus, he learned the hard way what it cost to challenge them. The peace treaty was absolutely devastating. He had to give up huge chunks of territory, pay a crippling amount of silver, and surrender his entire navy and all his war elephants. Rome wasn't just beating its enemies anymore. It was systematically taking them apart, making sure they could never be a threat again.
Meanwhile, back in Macedon, they decided to try their luck one last time under Philip's son, Perseus. This kicked off the Third Macedonian War, which came to a crashing halt at the Battle of Pydna. It was cynocephalae all over again, but this time it was total, utter annihilation. The military system that had conquered the known world was officially finished. For good.
And after Pydna, you can almost feel something snap in Rome. They were just done. This endless cycle of jumping in, liberating people, and then having to put down a new uprising was exhausting. The whole pretense of friendship and liberation, yeah, that was about to be dropped for something a lot more brutal and a lot more direct.
What happened next was just a rapid, ruthless consolidation of power. Rome dismantled the Macedonian kingdom entirely. They crushed one final rebellion. Then, when other Greek leagues got restless and rose up, they were systematically smashed. And the final, horrifying statement came in 146 BC when Rome completely leveled the ancient, wealthy city of Corinth just to make an example out of it.
The message was loud and clear. After 83 years of being dragged into one conflict after another, the whole charade was over. The Greek mainland was formally annexed. It was now the Roman province of Macedonia. The age of the free Hellenistic states was officially over.
So, when you take a step back and you look at this whole chain of events, you start to see a clear pattern emerge. This wasn't a single grand invasion. It was a kind of repeatable playbook for building an empire, almost by accident.
It's really a masterclass in divide and conquer. Step 1. Intervene on behalf of some smaller states. Step 2. Use your superior military to crush their big enemy. Step 3. Liberate everybody, which really just makes them all dependent on you. Step 4. Manage their affairs and turn on any of your old allies who get too big for their britches. And finally, Step 5. When you get tired of the constant rebellions, just drop the act and annex the whole place.
And that really is the heart of this whole story. Rome's conquest of Greece wasn't some premeditated plan. It was a domino effect. Responding to pirates led to a clash with Macedon, which led to a war with the Seleucids, which led to a final brutal crackdown. Every single step just made the next one feel almost inevitable.
Which leaves us with one last big question to chew on. Let's be honest, the Greek city-states were famous for constantly fighting with each other. So in stepping in with all its talk of liberation, did Rome actually end up saving Greece from its own self-destructive habits? Or did it just replace a dozen squabbling masters with one all-powerful one? Something to think about.
Subscribe to the channel, join us, and follow the history of ancient times, Rome, and Greece. We invite you to watch the next battle, the Mithridates War.